is a banner day. It's the 17th of November. When I started my therapy, when I started to remember all those god-awful things having to do with being a mind control victim in the 90s, I said that if by the 17th of November I didn't get a little bit happier with where my life was going, I didn't want to stay. This is decades later, and it turns out that the 17th of November wasn't just important to me. I guess we'll find out later what was important about that date, because I never figured it out then. But here I am, Frances Fox, military mind control victim, sex trafficked. I think they called us, the kids that were in the program, the NASA space babies. I learned interspecies communication, and then people go, "Oh, you're a pet psychic," and I want to slap them down. It's just an indicator that your lens is too narrow. And if you don't widen your lens, you're not going to get anything right about what's going on now. We are in the end of a cycle, and we're going into a new cycle with a much wider lens. Aliens are going to be part of it. And you're still bickering over stuff that doesn't make any sense. You're bickering with each other. When your biggest enemies are off planet, not all of them at all, the Galactic Federation, thank you for supporting Trump in the United States, also Venezuela, also Mexico. But you are arguing about the wrong things. All of the stuff that's going on that I see on X, which is where I get my news, all of you Christians, why don't you have the guts to say, not what the Bible will say, which was written 300 some years after Christ died? It was put together by the Vatican. Why don't you ask very specifically, what would Christ think about this? Jesus. What would he think about this? And I'm going to say this story again. I said it several times. I went to a party. I met a family. Their son was signed up for the military. He was going in the following week. And he talked to me, and I went. He was devout Christian, the family. Oh, my God. Could barely have a conversation with them. But the kid was going to the military. So I said to him, what would Jesus think about you going to the military? And he looked at me, and he just kind of was like, he was very educated, very well-mannered. And he was, the following week, my family that had invited me to the event said, what did you say to the kid? I said, I don't know. They're devout Christians. That has to be with Christ, right? I said, I asked him what Jesus would think about him going to the military. And they said, well, he's not going to the military anymore after he spoke to you. I think a lot of you don't need to speak to me. You need to speak to Jesus. And don't be using this Christian thing. My God, just declare a war on a whole group of people. You need to do it quick, though. You can't just think about it. It's really simple. What would Jesus say about all the finger pointing and all the declaring wars against other groups of people? Do you really think that Jesus had an opinion about Israel, which is an artificial state? I don't think so. So maybe you need to get back to basics, because the world under your feet is going to be really shaken up within the next, no, now, not in the next several weeks now. But let's get on to the stuff that I want to show you. The first thing I want to go to is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I had been watching her, and she looked very shaken up since I started on X. And that's fine, because there's an awful lot going on. I'm sure she sleeps with her cell phone. Cell phone, radiate, microwave cooks meat. Your head is meat, besides which microwave is a type of electricity. Your brain has an electrical system. So sleeping with your cell phone is going to do a job on you, and it rattles people. Okay, so I thought she's just addicted to cell phones, and that's why she's a wreck. Then all of a sudden, she totally straightened up, straight as an arrow, clear-headed, not good judgment, but clear-headed. And I went, something happened to this woman. And I really didn't get into the middle of that, because something's happening to a lot of people, especially our kids. The more they sleep on their cell phones and they're whatever. So I went ahead and I sketched her and exactly what I suspected. Let me say first a story, but you have to listen to the story because then you'll understand the sketch. When a lot of babies, when they're born, they cry for the first 3 months, especially at night. Well, that's when the spirits come in and attack. And then all of a sudden, and the doctors tell you, the pediatricians, in 3 months, this will get self corrected. Well, the digestive system does not self correct at 3 months, but something does happen at 3 months. And I'll tell you what happens. When the baby's born, the spirits start to attack, attack, attack. The babies are frightened and they're screaming. They're afraid. They get stomach aches, solar plexus, garbage kind of emotions. Okay, what happens at 3 months? Those attacking spirits were able to come in. And then they go to sleep and they wake up again when the kid is in their teens. Okay? So the explanation of this gets taken care of when the 3 months old doesn't hold any water, they don't understand it, the solar plexus doesn't change, your digestive organs don't change. They just tell you that what they've noticed is it changes at 3 months. Yes, the spirits were able to break the protection the child had and come in. Okay, so let's go to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't dislike the woman. I never did. Even before she lost her grip on herself, I did not dislike her. I just saw that she was very shaken and assumed she was another electro addicted person. Here's her sketch. On the left, you see a body that's in red. She got knocked out of her assemblage of bodies. This is the assemblage of bodies. And they're enfolded one inside each other, just like the Russian dolls. Got it? So she is knocked out of her assemblage of bodies. That's her on the right. That squiggly thing on her mouth means she has somebody did black magic on her. Then if you go to the center, that is her physical body. All those X's are black magic. All her energy centers have been X'd out. And then you have from Schumer at the top and Schiff at the bottom, from her solar plexus, garbage can of emotions, you have mind streams that they inserted into her and they're controlling her. Now, this is not the only person where it was Schumer and Schiff. What's interesting is that earlier today, Schiff was at the top and Schumer was at the bottom. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. But whatever it means that they're still very active and they are controlling her, and her is no longer inside her body. All the way to the left, that's her spirit body. Let me put it up here. That's the gold body, her magnetic astral spirit body. All these are one inside each other, like the Russian dolls. She's gone. What's operating inside her physical body that is totally different? Everything's ironed out. She's smooth as silk, except she changed her story. I don't care whether she's with Trump, she's not with Trump. Whatever her opinions are, she has the right to them. But she's too smooth. What happened? She got knocked out. And she's now controlled by Schumer and Schiff, which has to mean that Schumer is very much part of the the mind control program, Deep State, which would explain a lot of things. Now, what I've been telling my followers for a long time, several years, is when the kids are totally out of control, they're teenage kids and they're out of control, they should have had them on cannabis, they would not have had all that extra energy. Cannabis puts out fire. When you put out the fire, people calm down. Oh no, cannabis is the food of the devil. Okay. But what I said to the parents was, if your kid all of a sudden starts to self-correct and he's smooth as silk and he's saying, Mom, I really love you. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. No problem. I'll take out the trash. I'll do this. I'll show up at school every day. I said, you need to look into their eyes and see if that's still your kid inside of that physical body. Because most of the time, it's not. And it wasn't that they found Jesus. I wish that they had. Not, by the way, not your version of Jesus. That's a marketing version. So, what is the matter with her? She is a zombie. And she, just the way they say there's a group of spirits that the devil controls, this is basically the same thing. but her physical body is not dead. Okay? She didn't go from being an electro addicted person with her opinions and liking Trump, whatever. And it's okay because a lot of us are not so happy with Trump having to do with the Israel thing. Okay? Israel? Jesus Christ would have gone, what? So if you like Israel, fine. If you don't like Israel, fine. But please not be talking about the Bible and being a Christian with the whole thing with Jesus. Look what it cost Charlie Kirk. Okay? And, okay, so now let's go on to another subject because I could go on about this forever because it's a shame because a lot of your children are doing the same thing. They're going through a living hell. They're a wreck. They can't get their act together in the physical dimension, even though Marjorie Taylor, whatever Green, her last name is, she held it together. She was able to do it. But she was obviously electro addicted and didn't have enough contact with nature, which is why we should applaud when Trump goes golfing. Jesus Christ did everything outside or in a cave, the maximum of earth element. Let me get off of that, Francis. Location, location, location. 2 nights ago, I was working with my group. I don't remember what we were doing, which one of the. And, oh, no, we were working to reduce the fire in Mexico because of the protesters and going against the president, da, 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 da. You cannot have violence unless there's an excess of the fire element. You can put out the fire element so easy in the other dimensions by simply visualizing the president inside an igloo, the protesters with ice on top of them, or under a cascade of water. So we were doing that. And all of a sudden, I could see where I used to live prior to where I'm living now, which is Coral Gables, Florida. The street is called Madeira. I lived in a building that was number 18, apartment. I think the building was 18. And I had apartment 18. Across the street, that I lived there a year and a half. And in a year and a half, I said all of the intelligence agencies that the United States have had started to move in close to me. I must be like really important. And I used to say they should try this whole camera share thing. Ride share, timeshare. Let's do a camera share. You don't have to get that many cameras in my house. Why don't you start sharing the cameras? It was ridiculous. Okay, well, I left. And now there's a lot of them around me. I don't think quite as many. Maybe they're camera sharing. I don't know. But last night, I think it was last night before, I'm doing too many things at one time as I'm frightened. So I could see them across the street. So they moved in because I was there, but they stayed. And from there, they have all their little electronic equipment and all their little computers. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, we worked with them. And I think that maybe today or yesterday they were moving out. I think that they didn't want to be there to start out with. These are not Cuban cartel mafia. These were Anglos from Washington. Okay, so there's a big change up there. And when we were working with Mexico, which was the whole point, it was yesterday. That was the whole point. They were helicopters with electronic equipment to augment the fire in the protesters so that there would be violence. Can we please, modern people, stop using technology against each other to make us think we really hate each other that much? All this information, Trump, you need to pass laws having to do with frequencies and its use to alter human behavior. You need to pass laws, frequencies, and then we can get all those black magicians. And I think they're going to self-correct a lot. They're not going to end up in jail. Nobody's been able to stop people into black magic because nobody can take them to court, even though there was a case one in France several years ago. But we need to have more of those cases to where they actually take these people to court because there's very easy ways to prove it. You have witness accounts. People who can see in the other dimension. It's not my fault that you think that the third eye is a conspiracy. Yes, it is a conspiracy, and it's a conspiracy to keep you from seeing stuff that's part of your life, but in other dimensions. So then you think that the people that can see, well, you know what? You should cozy up to some of them because they can give you the root cause of why you're sick, the root cause of what's going on in your home, all having to do with the other dimensions that you think that the people that are into them are low class, low IQ, superstitious. Super. That's where superpowers are next. The Cuban cartel mafia, their plan is to move to Ocala, Florida. Ocala is the horse capital of the world. It's one of the few places on the planet that has a perfect balance of male and female energies. Guess what? Horses repair sexual issues. They help pedophiles in therapy by having them ride horses. So this Cuban mafia that is totally into sexual abuse and are perverts, they want to move in mass to Ocala. They don't like the islands. They don't like the islands. They don't like the black people. They don't like the island. No, 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 no. They like beach, but they don't like the islands. Ocala. You know what? Get them the hell out of there, Trump. Because I want to have a hobby farm there. And they're already preparing to move to Ocala. So you need to look into that now. Or you can wait until they get there and then kick them the hell out and then the property prices go down and I can buy cheaper. Okay? But you need to know they're going to Ocala. And right on Madera, on the corner in Coral Gables, Florida, is a building called One Alhambra. Coral Gables, Florida. There are two men there. They used to be three, but I don't know if the third one actually had an apartment there. There are two that have an apartment there, which I expect them to deed it over to me to pay for everything they've done to me for decades. Okay? It's one building away from where they have the apartment on Madeira, where they're doing all this electronic control of all of Coral Gables, which is a very ritzy city with a lot of important people. A lot of politicians are from there. So you should have taken care of this already, Trump, because I gave out this information a long time ago. But obviously, you have a plan. But that plan does not include me being comfortable. Okay. So funny. Everything is about strings. And I want to check and make sure that I can tell you this. Okay. Give me a second. Okay. You know string theory? Okay. Very, what was it? Einstein and Stephen Hawking's string theory. They wanted to unravel it. Well, you know what? I unraveled it 30 years ago. So here it is. Look at those strings. That's string. Okay, here you go. On one person, strings. Those strings, you're going to feel so fucking, sorry for the bad word, foolish. Those strings are cannabinoid receptors in the human system. So when they discovered cannabinoid receptors, they discovered the conduits of the mind. And it turns out that the conduits of the mind on planet Earth love cannabis, which reduces fire. Because fire is the biggest enemy of the strings, which science calls cannabinoid receptors, which channel a liquid that is your mind. Black holes are strings. Now, I call them mind strings, and I'm helping you guys out by calling them Fox cannabinoid mind strings. But cannabinoid is really a descriptive of what it is that the strings like, which is cannabis. Took you a long time to get out of that disinformation. Track whoever started that because you'll find the evil empires, deep state, absolutely. So, black holes are strings. The channels of your mind are strings. They're mentioned in the Lord's Prayer, the original in Aramaic. They channel a nectar called amrit, which is a liquid, which is your mind. You are not a structure. You flow through structures, the strings, and you use different energy bodies to function on the different dimensions. The disposable one, and the only disposable one, is the one on the far left, which is your physical body. It's disposable. And other people can use it, which is what's happening with MTG. I struggle with names because I have a tremendous programming from the mind control stuff to not remember people's names and faces. So I end up looking very foolish, whatever. So, but what is it that I asked my masters if I could tell you? There are strings that extend from this planet. There are strings that extend from other planets to this planet and insert into people, and the people are controlled by off-planet forces. I don't know that we should call those strings, they're all strings. They're all conduits. Everything is strings, which is why in string theory they said once we figure out the strings, and the important things with strings are frequencies, Trump. That's why you have to get a grip on the whole frequency thing. This is the scientists, Einstein, Hawkins. The important thing is frequency with the strings. The strings are everything. So years ago, I asked my masters to explain to me how they can do an ancestral curse, and those are in the Bible several times. And for generations, you ruin a family. And it turns out that when the curse is done, that is usually done in a countryside setting with the elements, you need to know about the elements, they open up a portal in the ritual, and from off planet, a string is inserted, a conduit, a channel. So we can call them strings, they're channels. And spirits are attached from off planet. And whatever the petition of the black magician was, that off planet being makes it happen forever 6 generations, 7 generations, 3 generations. So that's how they do it. Once you get out of the physical dimension, the factor of time doesn't exist. That's something that's hard to get used to initially. It takes a while to get used to it. It doesn't exist. So 6 generations for off planet, that's nothing. You can go back and forth in time because you don't have the time restrictions that we have on the physical dimension. Okay. So I've known this about I'm going to say something important, and so I need my clinics. That's the spirits bothering from here to here. So I've known this for 30 years and did not really apply it until this week. Did not really widen my own lens to understand, because I was looking to try to understand how it is that some of us are so controlled that it's like, how are they doing this? And it has to do with these conduits that are initiated from off planet and then come in to people. I'm sure they also come into institutions, and they also come into other things. And then they just feed whatever, or they're controlling those people. In this particular case, the strings, the intention of the conduit was to put a lid on something so that what would have been a natural evolution could not happen. So when I saw this last night so clearly, having to do with a particular person, it was frightening, and oh my God, this information. But basically, it's the same thing I learned in the 90s. Just widen your lens, Francis. There is one of those conduits from Orion into the back of all human beings, into the back of the liver, which delivers energy from Orion. And the energy it delivers is the energy of hate and cannibalism. So my followers on Mondays, I go back and I keep cutting that conduit. That's the reason for the movie The Matrix. The conduit is in the back of the neck. You also have those matrix implants in other parts of your body. The main one, important one, is the one in the back of the liver. And that is why when Jesus was on the cross, the lance of the soldier pierced his liver. He left us a message. which nobody looked at because most people are not into symbolism. They consider that conspiracy stuff. No, it's information. So let's go on to something a lot nicer, a lot more. Let's go on to what the future is. So I discovered something and I have it here. And it is a sigil or sigil. I think it's a sigil the way you pronounce it, sigil. It's a symbol, which is actually a technology. It's a radionics technology. And it's not just a symbol, it's a sigil because I vitalized it with the intention of people having superpowers with it and that it be used not against people's free will. Basically, it's the cross, but in this case, Jesus was letting us know that he did not have protection in his third eye. Okay. And this sigil, which I'm calling the fox peace sigil, is the Ankh, which is from Anubis, the Lord of the underworld. You have the protection that Jesus is telling us that humanity does not have. And this is true. So, this technology, this image, the crossbar is at the level underneath your arms, which is the heart. And then at the bottom, I asked the graphic artist, who is Nicole Walls, incredible. I asked her to make it like a stake. And why did I ask for that? Because in the Lord's Prayer, it doesn't say in Aramaic, protect us or deliver us from evil. It does not say that. It says, help us to be in the present, which means anchored, rooted, which means earth energy. You're rooted. You have your coccyx is totally spiked into the earth. So then I asked that there be a spike at the bottom. And then we put the cannabis leaf on it. Why? Because it reduces fire. And that's the big problem today on the planet is too much fire. That's why all the violence. If you have a group of people that are screaming and crying and yelling and threatening, and you hose them down with water, they do not continue. They stop because you just put out their fire. Now, they may start 2 minutes later, 5 minutes later, hose them down again. If you have a crying baby, put the baby in water. There was a shaman in Australia that said if your baby was crying in the middle of the night, to turn on the hose and simply carrying the baby, walk over the hose, not even hosing down the baby, just walk over the hose and the baby would stop. I never tried it. I didn't have young children at that point. But if you have a screaming baby, if you put them in the tub full of water, they're going to stop because that water is putting out the fire that the spirits that are attacking your baby need to be able to continue. So let's go back to this. It turns out that this is a piece of technology. It's other dimensional technology. And that at the top is like the astronauts, where they have whatever they call what you put on the hood, what they put on their heads to protect them. If you're going to go off planet, one of the problems I think Elon runs into with his launchings is things burning up. Well, cannabis puts out fire. So you have a protection of your head if you're going to go off planet. You have the fire taken care of. You're rooted on planet Earth, which means you don't have to be protected or delivered from evil. This is a technology that, through sheer intuition, I put together. It's technology having to do with a new dimension that apparently I am anchoring or opening up on planet Earth to where you can be rooted as a human being. It's okay if you don't believe this. Widen your lens and just listen. Okay? Just listen. You're rooted on planet Earth with a spiking. You have protection if you go off the dimensions that we're used to and this physical body was built for, you have the protection of your head, which Jesus Christ didn't have, and you are heart-centered because that crossbar is at the level of the heart, which is underneath the arm. This part of you is controlled by the throat chakra, which are heavily invaded. Underneath the inside of your arms and hands is, you know what? I think I need to take that call because I am waiting for something out of the country. Francis Fox. And the cannabis will take care of the issue of the fire once you get out of the dimensions that we were designed for. So you are going to have and it has superpowers. You're going to, and that dimension that is opening up now is where the superpowers are. We were supposed to have superpowers in the 60s. That part of us, which is, by the way, in the third eye. But at the end of the Second World War, the people in power decided that it didn't really matter that Japan had said, okay, we give up, the war's over. They wanted to experiment with some bombs. So they did. And the people that make decisions for the planet, all planets, said, we don't think the people on superpowers. So that got postponed. Now the superpowers are available. And hopefully the third eye, which is about superpowers, wisdom, hopefully the third eye is operational to where you can use the superpowers with the wisdom. But this particular piece of technology, it's technology. Okay? Technology. And that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. It's a type of radionics machine. And it's for today's time. It doesn't mean that the Christian cross was invalid. It was not. But you had Jesus die on it, and look at this. That's a sign. Everything that you see that's not 100% correct, if you ask, I wonder why this is like this, what can I learn from this with a wider lens, you're going to learn a lot. And you're going to be more operational in this new cycle that we're going into. Apparently, between today, the 17th of November, and the 18th of November, there's going to be a big cut in humanity. And it's going to be pretty obvious whose frequency is not going to be supported by this new golden age that we're entering. So let's not, I keep going back to the whole Christian Jesus Christ thing. If you are not considered a Catholic or a Christian, and you look at the people that are Catholics and Christians, you go, that Jesus would have never done that. Jesus would have never X'd me out because I'm a psychic. And a lot of people that at all. So we may end up at war within our own boundaries in terms of the United States or with other countries because of things saying we're Christian that Jesus would have never supported. Jesus would go, what the hell's the matter with these people? He's sitting around giving people healings, getting himself a purification before he started his mission with water, purified with the element of water. Sitting around, as far as I can see, under a tree, in caves, a lot of stuff in caves, because caves give you grounding. They root you. You're able to think. So the Christian thing is out of control, and Jesus would not approve. And I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to ask the question, would Jesus have wanted this? Did he at all indicate that he wanted this in particular, the military, the thing with Israel, the thing with the Muslim? Would he have wanted that? I think the answer is no. So people are using Jesus and the Bible as an excuse. Okay, so fine, okay. But it also is not compatible with the age of Aquarius. You don't divide people into groups and point them at each other. You don't. And then make sure they have enough fire so they're actually going to lunge at each other. Ah, electro addiction. It's a big issue. Electro addiction is a big issue. And I think people are going to start listening. Um, I do something that's called Fox purifications, and people pay. It's minimal, and then I do it like a group, like 50 or 100 people at a time. They're not present. I do it when I'm relaxed. I did the autism group. Lots of black magic, but off-planet black magic. I mean, lots of black magic. In other words, talking about these channels, the mind strings from off planet, the autistic kids are totally controlled. And the reason I didn't say a lot of this before is because the parents of autistic kids and the groups that form about with autistic kids, they're very reactionary, and they have very small lenses. And I will just tell you one story, and I will not take care of autistic kids, so do not send me an autistic kid. I took care of many kids in the 90s, 50 kids. I pulled 5 out of autism. I didn't say they were no longer autistic. Their medical doctor said they were no longer autistic. Okay. I sent every one of them to have spirit release therapy several times, plus I gave them healings. I had a couple whose child was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. They had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on different schools and therapies, everything. Anybody had a new conference, if they thought they had something new in Wyoming, they would fly over there. They were really dedicated. I took care of them. The kid started to speak for the first time after 2 sessions. So then at that time, I would see people in person. So then the next session that they came, they said, "We have really bad news." And I said, "Well, what?" They said, "Well, we're moving." I went, "Oh, that's a shame." And I did everything in person at that point. And they said, "So we can't come anymore." And I said, "But why are you moving?" They said, "Well, there's a school." I don't even remember how much the school charged per year for autistic kids, and we think maybe it can make a difference. So anyway, I never saw them again. And then somebody, my secretary, I think, said to me, "Wait a second, you did 2 sessions with them and the kids started to speak and they're thrilled with you?" And it cost them what? I think the sessions were $350, so $700. And they spend like 30, 40,000. I don't know at that time how much it would have been in schools, and they never got as much as what you did in 2 sessions, and they're leaving Miami to go to a school that can't do what you do, Francis. I said, "Listen, pretty typical of autistic parents. They can't hear. But now I know why they can't hear. They're totally controlled from off-planet forces. And don't send anything my way. It's just going to wash off. I've had this information forever. I'm just trying to help. I'm revealing. All you have to do is say, I'm crazy, and it's okay. Because a lot of people already know que la loca no está tan loca. What does that mean? The crazy lady is not so crazy. Okay? So we're going to call it quits. We've had helicopters circling my apartment today, so something big must be happening. Well, something big is happening. But I hope that all of my listeners fall on the right side of the fence in whatever division is happening from the 11th, which was a 11/11 portal, till tomorrow, which is when the portal closes. And after that, the people that have all this heaviness in their assemblage of bodies end up on the wrong side of the fence. That's in the Bible. The Mayans said it, and the dolphins also. Okay, so we have this converted into a podcast. It's on Spotify and iTunes. Also on both of my YouTube channels, both of which are totally controlled, but that's okay. And I do have my cannabis website up, and you can translate it into Spanish. Okay, and the name of the website is Francis Fox Cannabis. Very simple. And by the way, there you can download my cannabis sensory therapy videos. One is 2 hours and one is 10 hours. I think I have to take down the 10-hour. It's making the website too heavy. Why do I have it in 10 hours? Because a lot of people hundreds, thousands of people are listening to it, have it on all night because it protects from spirits, because it has the 420 frequency of cannabis, um, which reduces fire, which is the food of the devil and the spirits. So if you have that frequency going, you have a lot of protection from spirits. Anyway, that's the website. And any comments, send me an email, which I will probably not get because my emails are totally controlled. But we could try. Okay, I'm available. And one day those gates will open up. And meanwhile, we will see you again. And thank you for listening. And thank you if you can share. All I want for you is to widen your lens, because a lot of information is going to come in and you need to have a place to put it, and you do not have it now. You never understood all the messages Christ gave on the cross. Why the liver? Why the crown of thorns? You never understood that. You never asked, what would Jesus think about this? You don't ask that. Individual power, community, that's what's supported with this